Everyone has told you that you are broke because you lack discipline. Your parents implied it. The gurus scream it. Wake up earlier, work harder, track every dollar, take cold showers. And you believed them, and you tried, and you failed, and you added the failure to the long list of evidence that something is wrong with you. So let me open this video by destroying that entire story with one observation. You do not lack discipline. You are one of the most disciplined people alive. For years, without missing a single day, you have rehearsed poverty with a consistency that would shame an Olympic athlete. Every morning you have checked the balance and felt the same drop in your stomach, without fail. Every bill has triggered the same tightening on schedule. Every conversation about money has run the same script, word for word, take after take, for decades. You have never skipped a session. You have never taken a week off from feeling poor. That is discipline. Ruthless, flawless, unbroken discipline. The problem was never the amount of discipline in you. The problem is what it has been pointed at. You have built a nervous system so perfectly trained in lack that it now performs lack automatically, professionally, without your conscious participation. Which means there is only one question worth asking, and it is not how do I become disciplined. It is what should my discipline serve? Because there is a discipline that makes money, one single discipline, and it is not on any guru's list. Nobody teaches it. Schools do not teach it because schools were built to train employees. The discipline industry does not teach it because you cannot sell it in a planner. Most rich people could not teach it if they tried because they run it without knowing its name. Today I'm going to teach it to you, piece by piece, and I'm going to show you how to take the exact machinery that has been working against you with such devastating reliability and point it at wealth instead. This is not motivation. This is a retraining program for your nervous system, and it begins with unlearning everything the discipline industry ever sold you. Let me show you what the world means by discipline and why that version has never made anyone wealthy. The world's discipline is behavior management. It lives entirely in the body. Wake at 5, run in the rain, say no to the dessert, log the expenses, grind through the task list. And I want to be careful here, because I'm not telling you those habits are worthless. I'm telling you they operate on the wrong layer, and the layer they skip is the one that decides everything. Here is the proof, and you have lived it. You can force the body through a perfect disciplined day, up at dawn, workout done, budget updated, every box ticked, while the imagination spends that same day rehearsing disaster. Running the argument with the bank, replaying the humiliation, previewing next month's shortfall in high definition. The body marched in formation while the imagination rioted, and the law does not respond to the body. The law responds to the imagination. Neville Goddard did not say disciplined behavior creates reality. He said imagining creates reality, and an undisciplined imagination inside a disciplined body is a house where the servants are polishing the silverware while the master upstairs is setting the beds on fire. This is why you know so many people, and you may be one of them, who are impressively disciplined on the surface and permanently broke underneath. They mastered the visible discipline that neighbors applaud and never once trained the invisible discipline that pays. So let me give you the true definition, the one that actually moves money, and I want you to hold it against everything you have ever been sold. Discipline is not control of the body. Discipline is control of attention. That is the entire redefinition, and everything else in this video hangs from it. At any given moment, 10,000 things are asking for your attention, and whatever wins your attention gets your feeling, and whatever gets your feeling gets planted, and whatever gets planted gets printed into your world. That is the chain of command. Attention, feeling, seed, circumstance. The rich did not get rich by budgeting harder than you. Somewhere deliberately or by inheritance, their attention was trained to rest on possession, on ease, on solutions, on the end already achieved, and the feeling followed the attention, and the world followed the feeling. Your attention, meanwhile, was trained by worried parents and bad news and years of tight months to fly, instantly, automatically to threat, to what is missing, to what could go wrong. Nobody calls that a skill, but it is one, a perfectly rehearsed skill, and it is being performed right now, today, at a professional level by the most disciplined student in the room, which is you. The work in front of us is not to become disciplined. You already are. The work is to change what the discipline serves, to take the trained attention off the gap and place it deliberately, hour after hour on the end, until resting on the end becomes what your nervous system does by itself. Now I have to explain what your nervous system actually is in this teaching, because once you see it clearly, the whole game changes shape. Think of your nervous system as a doorman, a gatekeeper standing at the entrance of your deeper mind. All day long, impressions arrive at the door and ask to be let in. The bank balance arrives and says, "Let me in, I am here to tell him what he is worth." The news arrives and says, "Let me in, I carry a recession." Your relative arrives and says, "Let me in, I have the reminder that money has always been hard in this family." And here is the tragedy of the untrained nervous system. It has no doorman at all. The door stands open. Every impression walks straight in, sits down at the table of your identity, and starts giving orders. You see the low number, and within 1 second, the low number is no longer information. It is instruction. It has become, "I am a man who does not have enough." And the printer downstairs receives the instruction and schedules 6 more weeks of it. This is what it means to be undisciplined in the only sense that matters. Not that you eat the dessert, that you let every stray impression of lack walk into the throne room and legislate your identity. The wealthy mind is not the mind that never receives bad impressions. Bad impressions knock on every door in the world. The wealthy mind is the mind with a trained doorman, a nervous system that inspects every arrival at the threshold and asks one question: are you in agreement with who I have decided to be? And if the answer is no, it does not get in. It gets acknowledged, handled if it needs handling, and turned away at the door, credentials refused. Let me show you this mechanism operating in real time, because you have watched it 1,000 times without knowing what you were watching. Take 2 people, same city, same morning, and let the same impression arrive at both doors. A headline: economy slowing, hard times ahead. The first man has no doorman. The headline walks in and you can watch it take command of his body within seconds. The chest tightens, the mood drops. By 9 in the morning he is rehearsing cutbacks. By noon he is speaking scarcity to a colleague. By evening he has cancelled a plan that would have opened a door. And the headline is now living in his identity rent-free with the keys to the printer. The second man reads the same headline and something completely different happens, something invisible. The impression arrives at the threshold and the trained doorman meets it there. Interesting claim. Not in agreement with who I am. And it simply is not admitted. He does not argue with the headline, does not build a case against it, does not spend energy fighting it, because fighting an impression is just letting it in through the back door of attention. He acknowledges it the way you acknowledge weather in another country, and his feeling the only thing that plants never moves. Same input, 2 nervous systems, 2 different futures printed from the same morning. And I need you to understand this coldly. The difference between those 2 men is not intelligence, not luck, not information. It is training. One threshold is defended, one is abandoned. And every single impression of your life, every balance, every bill, every offhand comment, is currently meeting one of those 2 doors. Yours has been standing open since childhood. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. It is not the big impressions that built your poverty. It is the small ones admitted by the 1,000. You think your money identity was formed by the big traumas, the layoff, the debt, the failure, and those played their part. But the doorman was really defeated by volume. The 400 tiny impressions a day that each seemed too small to resist. The wince at the price of the menu. The reflexive, too expensive, muttered in the aisle. The 2-second flinch at the notification. The half-heard sentence from a struggling friend. The scroll past someone's vacation with that small acid drop of "not me." None of them announced themselves as programming. Each one lasted a breath, and each one walked through the open door, made its small deposit of lack and left, and the deposits compounded, day after day, year after year, into the financial identity you now call realistic. This is why I told you that you are already disciplined. Admitting 400 impressions of lack a day, every day for 20 years, and feeling each one, is a training regimen. It is the most consistent practice of your entire life. Nobody ever calls poverty a practice, but that is exactly what it is, not a condition, not a circumstance. A practice, performed daily by a nervous system that was never given a different assignment. And anything that was built by practice can be dismantled by practice. The same repetition that installed the reflex can install its replacement. That is the entire basis of what I am about to give you, and it is why none of this depends on willpower, positivity, or luck. It depends on reps. So let us begin the retraining. and the first exercise is the foundation of every other one. I call it the refusal at the threshold, and it happens in the 2 seconds after an impression of lack arrives, because those 2 seconds are the entire battlefield. Here is the protocol, exactly. An impression lands, the balance, the bill, the comment, the price, and in the instant you feel the old drop begin in your chest, that familiar falling feeling that has greeted money information your whole life, you interrupt it at the door with 3 words spoken inwardly, calm and cold. Not my order. That is all. Not my order. You are not denying the bill exists. You are not arguing with the number. You are informing the impression, and more importantly, informing your own nervous system, that this fact may enter as information, but it may not enter as instruction. It can sit in the entryway and be handled, paid, filed, answered. It does not get to walk upstairs and rewrite who you are. In the beginning, this will feel mechanical, even silly, and you will catch the impression late, after it has already flooded you, sometimes minutes later, sometimes at night. Catch it anyway. Refuse it late. Because here is what the neurology is doing underneath. Every single refusal, even a late one, even a clumsy one, is 1 repetition in the gym. You are building the interval between stimulus and identity, prying open a gap, where for decades there was instant fusion, and each rep widens the gap by a fraction. 1 refusal changes nothing. 1,000 refusals build a doorman. 10,000 build a doorman who works the night shift without you, and that is the goal because you cannot spend your life guarding a door manually. You are training a reflex, and reflexes are built exactly 1 rep at a time. Before we go further, you deserve to know who trained you, because you did not choose this configuration, and you should stop blaming yourself for it. Your nervous system came out of the factory neutral. No infant flinches at a bank notification. The doorman was not born absent. He was removed systematically by the people who raised you, and they did it with love, which is what makes it so hard to see. Every time a parent said we cannot afford it with that particular weight in the voice, your small nervous system recorded not just the words but the state underneath them, the tension in the room, the fear behind the eyes, and filed it as the correct response to money. Every hushed argument about bills through a bedroom wall was a training session. Every rich people are thieves. Every money does not grow on trees. Every "do you think I am made of money" was 1 more rep in the program you are now running as an adult. By the time you were 10, the curriculum was complete. Money equals threat. Desire equals danger. Wanting more equals betrayal of the family. And here is the mechanism that locks it in. A child cannot refuse an impression at the threshold because a child has no threshold. The doors of a young mind stand completely open. That is what childhood is, and whatever walks in during those years does not just visit, it pours the foundation. So the flinch you feel today at a price tag is not yours, it is your mother's flinch, or your father's, or their parents' flinch from a harder century, handed down through the open door of your childhood like a family heirloom nobody wanted. Understand this without bitterness, because bitterness is just 1 more impression of lack asking to be admitted. They gave you the only training they had, but you are not a child anymore. The door has an owner now, and the owner can post a guard, and the inheritance stops being passed forward on the day the guard takes his post. You are the first person in your bloodline who can end this training program, and you end it not by arguing with the dead or resenting the living, but by refusing 1 impression at a time to keep practicing what they taught. Before I take you into the deeper layers of the training, the attention diet, the imaginal gymnasium where the real muscle is built, and the strange discovery that your nervous system eventually starts rejecting poverty on its own, without your help while you sleep, I want to mark who is actually in this, because watching a video about discipline is the world's discipline. Doing the reps is ours. So here is your first official repetition. Go to the pinned comment and write 2 words. On duty. That is the doorman's phrase. It means the threshold of your mind just gained a guard for the first time in your life, and the 400 daily impressions of lack are about to start meeting resistance. Write it on duty and stay with me, because the second half of this training is where the reflex becomes automatic, and automatic is where the money is. Now the second layer of the training, and this one governs everything your doorman has to deal with, because there are 2 ways to win at a door. You can refuse impressions 1 by 1 as they arrive, or you can stop scheduling deliveries of poison to your own address. I call this the attention diet, And I want you to be honest about what you are currently feeding yourself, because most people who complain about their money mindset are ordering lack for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You wake up, and the first thing your eyes touch is the phone. And the phone serves you collapse, layoffs, prices, war, and someone else's highlight reel, all before your feet touch the floor. Through the day you graze on financial doom content, conversations that circle complaint, comment sections marinated in resentment, and at night you fall asleep to more of it, handing the printer its overnight instructions. Then you do 10 minutes of visualization and wonder why the 10 minutes lose to the 10 hours. Understand the arithmetic of impressions. The nervous system is trained by whatever it is exposed to, most often with feeling, and exposure is not neutral, it is curriculum. Every input you allow is a lesson you are scheduling. So here is the discipline, and notice it costs no willpower at the moment of temptation, because it is done in advance by design. You will guard the 2 border hours of your day with your life. The first hour after waking and the last hour before sleep are when the door hangs loosest on its hinges, when the deeper mind is most exposed, and in those 2 hours nothing enters that is not in agreement with who you have decided to be. No news, no feeds, no balance checking, no money conversations. The morning belongs to occupying the state, the night belongs to the scene, and the world's noise can have the middle of the day, where your doorman, fresh from good training, will be standing by to meet it. You would never let strangers walk through your house at dawn and midnight. Stop letting them walk through your mind at exactly those hours. And that brings us to the gymnasium itself, the place where the actual muscle is built, because everything I have given you so far is defense, and no one ever got rich on defense alone. Refusing impressions of lack keeps the old program from getting stronger. It does not by itself install the new one. The installation happens in one place only, the imaginal act, performed deliberately, daily, with feeling in the state Neville told us about 1,000 times, the drowsy threshold just before sleep. Here is your training session, and I want you to treat it exactly like an athlete treats the gym. Not as a wish, not as a ritual, as a workout with sets and progressive load. Each night in bed, body heavy, you enter one short scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. The congratulation, the calm glance at a full account, the quiet dinner where money is simply not a question anymore. You enter it in first person. You touch something in the scene to make it solid. A hand shaken, a glass lifted, a phone held, and you loop it gently, without strain, until the feeling of it being normal settles over you, and you let sleep take you inside that normality. That is 1 rep at maximum load, because a scene impressed at the threshold of sleep bypasses the arguing surface mind entirely and goes straight to the printer. Now hear the part almost nobody teaches. The measure of progress in this gym is not vividness. Some of you will never see crisp images, and it does not matter. The measure is feeling, specifically the feeling of naturalness. The first nights, the scene will feel like a costume, stiff and borrowed and faintly embarrassing, and that stiffness is not failure. That stiffness is the burn of an untrained muscle meeting resistance. You do not walk out of the gym because the weight is heavy. The heaviness is the point. Return to the scene every night and watch the load lighten week by week. The night the scene finally feels ordinary, boring even, like remembering something that obviously happened, is the night the lift became strength. Naturalness is the whole game. You are not training to visualize. You are training to find wealth unremarkable. Now I have to destroy the fuel you have been running on, because it will betray you somewhere in week 2, and I want you to see it coming. Motivation. The discipline industry runs on it. The speeches, the anthems, the montage energy. And motivation has one fatal defect that disqualifies it from this work completely. Motivation is an emotion, and like every emotion, it is a response to circumstances, which means it is downstream of the 3D. The seminar fires you up, the fire lasts 3 days, the bank balance delivers 1 cold impression, and the fire is out, and you are left with an unguarded door and a head full of quotes. Watch the dependency. Motivated by results, demotivated by their absence, which means the 3D is still your master, still holding the leash, just yanking it in a pleasanter direction for a weekend. Discipline of attention is a different animal entirely. It does not consult the 3D before showing up. The doorman does not check the weather to decide whether to guard the door. He is on duty when it rains, on duty when the account is embarrassing, on duty on the grey Tuesday when nothing has moved in a month. And that independence from circumstances is precisely what makes the practice creative rather than reactive. So do not come to this work for the feeling of momentum, and do not measure the work by whether you feel inspired doing it. Some of the most important reps of the next 60 days will be performed with zero enthusiasm, mechanically, on nights you would rather scroll. And those unmotivated reps count double because they are the ones that teach your nervous system the new law. This does not depend on how we feel about the weather. This is who we are now. Let me tell you what happens in the weeks after you begin the actual sequence, so you recognize the milestones instead of missing them. The first thing you will notice, probably around week 2, is that you are catching the flinch late. The bill lands, the stomach drops, and only afterward, sometimes an hour afterward, you remember, that was an impression, I had the option to refuse it. Do not be discouraged by the lateness. Noticing at all is the first milestone, because for 30 years you never once saw the mechanism, you only lived its output. Then the gap starts to shrink. You catch the drop mid-fall, halfway down, and you can stand at the threshold while the feeling is still arriving and say, "Not my order," and feel something genuinely new, the sensation of a reaction being declined while it happens. That is the second milestone, and it will feel like a superpower because it is. Somewhere after that comes the third milestone, and this is the one I need you to burn into your memory now, because it is quiet and everyone misses it. One day, an impression that used to flatten you will arrive, the same species of bill, the same kind of number, and you will notice with a slight shock that nothing happened. No drop, no tightening. Just information standing in the entryway, waiting to be handled, and you unmoved handling it. You will almost feel disappointed because you were braced for a fight, and no fight came. Do not shrug past that moment. That moment is everything. That is the doorman working the night shift. The rejection you used to perform manually, with effort, with 3 words and clenched attention, has been delegated to machinery below consciousness, and machinery below consciousness is exactly where your poverty used to live. The reflex that ran against you for decades has been replaced at that specific gate by a reflex that runs for you, and it will keep running for you, unpaid and unsupervised, for the rest of your life. This is what I meant at the start when I said the goal is automatic wealth rejection of poverty, a nervous system that does the work without you. Think about how the old system operated. You did not wake up each morning and decide to feel sick about money. The sickness was automatic, pre-conscious, installed. Your poverty never needed your cooperation, only your open door. And the beautiful, terrible symmetry of this teaching is that wealth works exactly the same way. The rich man you envy does not spend his day heroically resisting thoughts of lack. Thoughts of lack cannot get a meeting with him. His doorman handles them below awareness, the way your immune system handles 1,000 infections a day without ever notifying you. And what reaches his conscious mind is already filtered into agreement with who he assumes he is. When people say the rich think differently, they are wrong in an important way. The rich mostly do not think about money at all, and that is the tell. Where you have 400 daily skirmishes, they have silence. Where you have vigilance, they have settlement. You are not training toward a life of better fighting. You are training toward the end of the war, toward a nervous system where lack cannot find a receptor to bind to, where the poverty impression arrives, finds no agreement, and dies at the door like a virus meeting immunity. Total immunity is the finish line of this program. Not managed poverty, not coping, immunity. Now the failures because you will have them, and the protocol must survive them. There will be a day, probably many, when the doorman gets overrun. A real blow lands, a car dies, a client vanishes, a number arrives uglier than anything you rehearsed. And before you remember a single word of this video, you are already flooded, already spiraling, already an hour deep into the old rehearsal with your heart pounding in the old rhythm. Here is what matters more than the flood, and I need you to hear it clinically. The relapse is not the damage. The interpretation of the relapse is the damage. The old self will rush in behind the flood with its favorite sentence, "See, you have not changed, this does not work, you are still you," and if you accept that sentence, you convert one bad hour into a surrendered war, because that sentence is itself the biggest impression of lack of the entire day, arriving when the door is smashed off its hinges. So here is the discipline for the aftermath. No autopsy of shame, no lost day spiral. You treat a flood the way an athlete treats a dropped weight. You do not hold a funeral over the barbell. You note it, you reset your stance, and the very same night, especially that night, you show up in the gymnasium and run the scene, because the rep performed on the worst day is worth 10 performed on easy ones. And before the scene, take 60 seconds and replay the flooded moment the way the trained version of you would have lived it. Calm at the threshold, information received, instruction refused, and let that revised record be the one that goes downstairs to the printer. A missed rep never ended an athlete. Quitting over the missed rep ends every single one who ends. The program does not require your perfection. It requires your return. So let me assemble the whole training program into its final shape, and notice, as I do, that not one piece of it involves the discipline the world tried to sell you. The redefinition, first and always. Discipline is control of attention, not control of behavior, and every rep below is a rep of attention. The refusal at the threshold, all day, every day. Impressions of lack met at the door with 3 cold words, not my order. Information admitted, instruction denied, late catches counted as full reps. The attention diet, decided in advance. The 2 border hours, first of the morning and last of the night, sealed against the world's curriculum because whoever writes those hours writes the printer's instructions. The gymnasium, nightly, no exceptions that survive the week. One scene, first person, touched and felt at the threshold of sleep, trained not for vividness but for naturalness, until wealth becomes unremarkable. The fuel, none. Discipline instead of motivation, reps that do not consult the weather, the unmotivated night counted double. The milestones watched for and honored. The late catch, the mid-fall refusal, and the sacred day nothing happens when the guard works the night shift and poverty loses its receptor. And the aftermath protocol, for the floods. No shame autopsy, the same night rep, the 60-second revision, the return. That is the entire machine, and every component of it is built from a material you have already proven you possess in absurd quantities. Repetition with feeling. The exact material you spent 30 years pouring into the practice of lack. Nobody on this earth gets to tell you that you cannot do this. You have already done it once flawlessly in the wrong direction. And here is the thought I want to leave pressing on your chest tonight. Somewhere in you right now there is a version of tomorrow morning already loaded. The phone, the flinch, the balance, the drop, the 400 unguarded doors, the day printed before breakfast. And if you do nothing, that version runs, because it has run every morning for years on pure automation. You now know it is automation. You have seen the machinery, the open door, the inherited flinch, the impressions filing in by the 100 to legislate your identity. And you know the machinery can be retrained, rep by rep, refusal by refusal, scene by scene, until rejecting poverty is as automatic as producing it used to be, which means tomorrow morning is no longer neutral. Tomorrow morning is the first shift, and the only question left is whether the door has a guard on it when the first impression arrives. So tonight, run the first scene. Tomorrow, before the phone, take the post. And when the first impression of lack walks up and reaches for the handle, meet it at the threshold like a professional, because that is what you are now. The most disciplined person you know, finally working for the right master. Then come down to the comments and tell me the first impression your doorman turned away. Name it. The balance, the headline, the aunt, whatever knocked first, because naming it in public is one more refusal. And I want a record under this video of 10,000 doors closing. On duty, I will see you at the post.